I'd like to welcome you to Guitar Tech Talk with Bill Purse. I have a classical guitar at this time to look at. A couple of things that are important in maintaining the guitar in your classroom. First thing that's very important is to know the parts of the guitar, which you've already covered. We have the headstock, we have the neck, the sound hole. Very important thing is the looking at back here where the saddle is and the bridge of the guitar. Okay, these are areas that get a lot of stress, and you have all the tension of the strings that are pulling on this area. So when you get a guitar, you want to kind of take a look at things, and I like to kind of work from the bridge all the way to the top. And one of the first things I like to do is take a little business card and just check to make sure that this bridge isn't lifting. So if I have a nice card and I'm sliding it along, is it going underneath? This is the critical spot back here. Can I slip that card underneath the bridge or not? And you can kind of tell if that's lifting. If that should happen, it's not a big deal to be able to get it to a technician to have it glued and placed back on. Another important thing with the guitar coming here is looking at something that's called the action. And the action is really talking about what the distance is between the fingerboard and the height of the string. The closer the strings are would be a very close action if the strings are further away. Now, why would these things vary? The closer action is going to be easier to play, while a higher action will give better tone quality to the instrument. Especially dealing with acoustic guitars, you're able to have it project a little bit more. So it's the ease of playing in the other areas. As we come down here are the frets. And we'll talk about this a little bit later. And I have an old set of strings on this one, so we can kind of change them and take a look at how that works. In this area, when we're looking at the headstock, one of the things is to be able to, how do we tie the strings on as we're working with this? And also, there are the tuning pegs that are here, some areas that we can work with on this function. So we can always kind of check starting with the bridge and finding out. If you're going to buy a used instrument, that's a good thing to pull out a little card and see, to check that area of the instrument. One of the things basic tools that you'll need to have, and the one I think is probably the most important, is something called a peg winder. And this is great because the concept is to be able to put the string, on the peg winder, and by turning it, we can save a lot of time instead of manually sitting there and adjusting the peg. So, tool number one. Tool number two, and I kind of have these matching in turquoise, you don't have to do that, is to be able to have diagonal cutters so you can cut strings. One of the things that, it seems like it's a pride issue with students when they have these strings that are hanging, the ends of the strings. Those can poke another student in the eye. They create a lot of problems. So those are some issues. On the back of the guitar, if we're looking at this instrument, another place to look is right here where the neck joins the heel. I'm always looking for, is it pulling away from the body? And that little index card works out really well. And a little later on, I'll show you how to change strap buttons. You'll notice on this guitar, I don't know, if I have a pick holder, and this is really a nice thing to be able to have. They're very inexpensive. Dunlop makes them, and I always have a pick right on the guitar. If you don't want to spend the small amount of money, you can always put a rubber band. One thing I like is to have the pick available, and I don't really recommend putting it in the strings. Some people will leave a pick like this, it can fall out, you can't find it. It starts warping the pick, so when it has a curve to it from being in the strings for some time. This area right here is called the nut, and what will happen when you tune your guitars, always bring the string up to pitch. Don't tune down. So if I'm going to tune this E string, I want to bring it up to pitch instead of dropping it down, because what will happen, the windings on the strings actually act like little files, and they score the nut. So sometimes you'll hear a pop when you're playing, and the string will just drop in pitch because it's caught on the nut. So that's one area that's nice to be able to tune up. You're not going to get the thing caught where it will drop down on the strings. A lot of times these nuts will wear out, and if it gets a lot of abuse in the class, you'll notice that this part will break off. And it's not a big deal to get go to a music store, you can get a nut that will put in here. A little bit of super glue, that's another tool you use a lot. Sometimes you can save them, but it's not really the best. You can buy a new nut and with a little file, or you can send it to a tech person. But these are some areas you need to be able to, and if I have an older guitar that's really seen its days, I'll usually take all the hardware off it to be able to save it, because you can recycle some of that stuff as you need it. Okay, so we talked about the parts of the guitar, we talked about the action on here and the bridge, you know, being able to set this up.